Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Peter Greenberg here with you for another Facebook Global Live Travel Update for the second Thursday of February 2022. Hope you're having a great time wherever you happen to be. Last week, I joined you from New York. We're a little further east of there today. I'm talking to you from the Tabuk region of Saudi Arabia. We're right here on the Red Sea. And of course, you can always ask me any questions you want. You know how to do it. Just send them in. We'll answer them live here on the air. In case we miss any of them, we'll get right to them either online or Saturday, day after tomorrow, on our Ion Travel radio show. That, of course, starts at 10 a.m. Eastern Time till 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Check your local listings. And if you can't find it, no problem. We stream it live. Just go to petergreenberg.com, log on, and listen to it along with everybody else. Lots of stuff to talk about. A fully packed show this week in terms of news. We'll start with the Crystal Cruises. They're done. Doors are locked, probably padlocked. You'll see a picture of their ship there. They've been seized. They had two big ships. They were both seized in the Caribbean for failure to pay bills. They will probably be sold, but never again as Crystal. That brand is probably done. They have a third ship, the Endeavor, which we were actually on when it began its maiden voyage in Iceland last summer. That ship was down in the Antarctic. The whereabouts of that ship right now, not necessarily known, but it will also probably be seized as part of a court order for failure to pay bills. Very sad story. The brand itself, a luxury brand with a stellar reputation in terms of service, a not so stellar reputation in terms of refunds during the pandemic. And it reminds me of the Ernest Hemingway story, where a friend of his comes to him one day and says, "Ernest, I got terrible news. I've lost all my money. I'm bankrupt. I don't have a dime to my name." And Ernest Hemingway says, well, how did that happen? And his friend said, well, slowly and then suddenly. That's the Crystal Cruise story. This has been happening slowly for a while, and then it suddenly happened. It's a sad story, especially for those passengers who were loyal to Crystal, especially for those passengers who paid for cruises they're never going to get. And if you're one of those, and by the way, there are lots of them. You had a similar situation during the pandemic when everybody suspended operations. Now the company is basically insolvent. Are you an unsecured creditor who will never see your money? Not necessarily so. Remember, if you paid with a credit card, and I hope you did, now's the time. Do not wait, do not stop, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Go immediately to your credit card company, dispute the charge because you did not receive the service for which you contracted. And under federal credit law, you're entitled to a refund. It'll start with an interim credit and then a refund. Now, a lot of credit card companies will play a game that you have to file it within 120 days of when you contracted for the service. And so many cruise passengers, especially at the luxury level, will book 6 to 8 months out. Are you out of luck? Not necessarily. A lot of people will interpret that 120-day rule as when you learned that you were not going to get the service. Well, you learned it earlier this week. So let me know what happens. You can always email me to peter@petergreenberg.com and let me know what happened with your Crystal Cruise refund, and we'll try to get into it. Again, a sad story, and one in which you hope could be avoided, but Crystal was overextended. And then what people don't realize is they thought they were making a strategic move in buying their own shipyard to build more of their ships. It was in Germany. When the pandemic hit, even the shipyard shut down and nobody was paying anybody's bills. They got an initial bailout from the German government. They were hoping for a second one. And when the second one didn't happen, the parent company basically became insolvent. And right after that, of course, it became Crystal. So we'll stay on top of the story. Again, nobody likes to see stories like this. It's happening. Protect your rights. Get that credit card refund. Let me know what happens. Let's move on. Another big story this week in the airline business, the proposed merger of Frontier and Spirit, making it a discount juggernaut. And the synergies of these two airlines are interesting. They both fly the same kind of equipment, Airbus. Their pilots union is the same pilot union for Spirit as it is for Frontier. They know their operations. The CEO of Frontier, Barry Biffle, we've had him on the show before. Where was he before Frontier? He was at Spirit. So this is not something that's like a huge shock, but it is something that surprised a lot of people that it happened when it did. We'll see what happens if the Justice Department lets it happen. I think they will. This will allow this airline, as a much bigger airline, to compete more with the legacy carriers, American, United, and Delta. And it's possible that there'll be some pricing pressure on those carriers to lower their fares, which are already pretty low. So we'll watch this space. Remember, the recovery in the airline business since the pandemic has been led by low-fare, low-cost airlines, and that's Frontier and Spirit. So we will see what happens. Not many more airlines left to merge and consolidate, by the way, but those are the last two big ones, and they become either the sixth or the seventh largest airline in the United States, by the way. It's a $6.6 billion merger if it happens. Now, we got to talk about Unruly Passengers again. It's back in the news. It's never left the news. The FAA, the number now stands at about 6,200 cases of unruly, disruptive, or downright violent passengers. And the CEO of Delta, way back in September, went to his fellow carriers, right, the carriers with which he competes, and said, listen, guys, can we get together on this? Can we share all of our banned passenger lists, and so that we can create our own no-fly list, so that a passenger thrown off a Delta flight couldn't just easily walk over and get on a United flight? Well, that never happened. So last week he appealed to the U.S. Justice Department to create a federal no-fly list based on the list provided by the airlines of those passengers who were banned. Did the Justice Department do that? They did not. They came back with a sort of milquetoast response saying, we're going to hold people accountable for their actions. Really? Let's discuss this. Of the 6,200 cases, how many have been prosecuted? Anybody want to guess? Take a guess. Get crazy. All right, about 30. How many have been convicted? About 12. How many of those initially proposed fines were ever paid in the full amount of the proposed fine? 0. So having a federal no-fly list based on people who've been convicted, come on, you can put it on a sheet of paper. It doesn't matter. I think we're going to go back to the airlines themselves having their own no-fly lists as an industry. And by the way, there's precedent for this. If I cheated cards in Las Vegas and I get banned from Caesar's Palace, guess what? The MGM Grand knows about it. So does Bally's. So does, the Wynn. They all share that information. And I can't just walk into a casino after I've been busted at another. Same thing here. It's going to be the private sector doing it, and I hope they do it soon, because guess what? Southwest Airlines has announced they're bringing back alcohol on the plane later this month. Let's see. Altitude, dehydration, pressure, and alcohol. What could possibly go wrong? Well, what's been going on all along. And the Flight Attendants Union at Southwest is not pleased with this. But in fairness, let's go back and review those 6,200 cases. Where alcohol was involved, which is more than 50% of those cases, the people didn't get drunk on the plane. They got drunk. They were already drunk when they boarded the plane. So the real key here is, can we focus in on the airport retail establishments and when they should stop selling alcohol to passengers before they board their flight? I've talked about this before, but the fact that Southwest Airlines is bringing back alcohol now prompts me to talk about it again. They should impose the NFL fourth quarter rule on alcohol sales at airports. It's timed to your boarding pass. Every boarding pass has a boarding time on it. So if I walk into a bar at the airport and my flight's leaving in 40 minutes and I want to double, they can't serve it to me. They should cut you off an hour before the time that's stated on your boarding pass. Or let's put breathalyzers at the jetway and load up the line. It's as simple as that. The minute you bring back alcohol in this environment, you're just asking for trouble. And I'm not opposed to drinking, but let's face it, 6,200 cases, you be the judge. In fact, why don't you be the judge? Convict them all. All right, forget that. Let's move on. Masks, the overwhelming reason why there were incidents on planes. March 18th is coming up. That's the decision date by which the United States has to decide whether or not to extend that mandate. Will they do it? It's becoming increasingly clear that the states aren't going to support it. We're seeing New Jersey and Connecticut, pretty soon New York, one by one starting to drop mask regulations either for the schools or for indoor dining and a number of other opportunities and experiences. Once that happens, the horses have left the barn, folks, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of strength they can have in extending that mandate beyond March 18th, even though our vaccination levels in this country are still not at the level that would justify getting rid of the mask mandate. So we shall see. What we are seeing as well are testing regimes changing. Portugal, which used to demand a test in order to enter the country, or even to transit the airport, even if you were not coming to Portugal, you were just changing planes there, they're dropping it. That's a really good sign. Let's see what happens in the United Kingdom. Let's see what happens elsewhere. We're also seeing other countries start to open. The Philippines now open. Australia, after 2 years, opens February 21st. That's a cool thing. What will happen in New Zealand? They can't be far behind. They compete, right? It all gets down to revenue. Nobody wants another summer of no revenue. You're going to start to see those gates coming down. Norway, same thing. So we will get a whole list together. You can find it on our website, petergreenberg.com, of the countries that are now opening, or I should say, or have basically relaxed the rules on testing or have eliminated them. Now, there's still a test required. Don't kid yourself. By the United States, within 24 hours of your return flight, you have to have a negative COVID-19 test to get on the plane. That's not going away just yet, but we shall see. All right, now we got stuff to talk about. And that is, there's a hotel. I'm going to tell you where it is. It's a Holiday Inn Express I'll tell you where it is in a second. I'll find it. But we know about it because our good friend Gary Leff, who writes theviewfromthewing.com, a great website, by the way, found it. They're offering their guests, by the way, this is called a bribe. They're offering their guests that if you give them all 10s, and if you write a great review, then they're going to give you extra bonus points. There are other hotels that will give you free dinners. There are other hotels that will even give you a free stay. So what are these hotels doing? They're incentivizing their guests to lie. I'm reminded of a story that happened to me a couple of years ago at a hotel called the Berkeley in Asbury Park, New Jersey. I checked in and, gave them my credit card. I had luggage, so the bellman put it on the cart, took me to the room. I opened the door to the room. Now, I'm not making this up. The door handle fell off in my hand. The mirror was cracked. There were blood stains on the wall. The stuffing was out of the chair. The closets were off the tracks. Can I continue with this? This was The Shining. And the bellman was a nice guy. In fact, he gave me his card, said, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. He leaves. I take one look around this room, which is pretty pathetic, and then I look at his card. And what's on his card? A TripAdvisor logo, that stupid owl, with a note saying, write a great review of your room and get a discount. Another incentive to lie. I'm in a room that could have doubled as The Shining. Here's Johnny. The problem is, how do you believe these reviews? Who's vetting these reviews? So here's my handy dandy advice. Anytime you see more than 3 words together that end in ST, best, most, loveliest, you get the picture? It could be a phony review. You have no idea. What gives you the idea that you can trust these reviews if hotels and other travel providers are openly encouraging their guests to lie by bribing them? Now, the folks at TripAdvisor will tell you they develop sophisticated algorithms to look for special keywords that indicate it's garbage. Well, listen, hasn't happened with these, and it didn't happen with anything else. I could actually write 12 bogus reviews, right? From 12 different computers with 12 different IPs, and they'd run them. So I'm just saying, how do you, by the way, this is a rhetorical question. How do you trust an online review? All right, end of discussion on that one. Now, interesting study I want to share with you. Emory University did a study of about 1,500 passengers on 10 transcontinental flights. The study goes back to 2018, but I found it. And what it says is, what seat should you choose on a plane to not get infected? Now, we all know people either like the window seat, they like the aisle seat, they like the bulkhead seat, they like the exit seat. No surprises there. The other no surprise, nobody, you don't need a survey for this, likes the middle seat. What a surprise. Okay, so then which seat should you choose? Well, in this study, they found that if you were in the infectious zone on a plane. What defines an infectious zone? Anywhere where you are within basically 3 feet of somebody else, you stand a higher chance of getting an infection. This could be the flu, by the way, not just COVID, right? Well, given that information, what's the best seat to pick? It's the window seat, because there's only one person next to you, not two. And if you lean either to the left, if you're on the left side of the plane, or to the right, you're on the right side of the plane, you're further apart, and nobody's going to be crawling over you during the flight to get to the bathroom. So here it is. Window seat, go to the bathroom before the flight, and you have a much better chance. We had a university that took that survey for your safety. We love it. Okay, let me give you our trivia question this week. And by the way, the reason why I know this is because I've sailed it. Okay, here it is. What country is estimated to have the most islands in the world? I'll give you a hint. It's not the Philippines. They've got more than 8,000. It's not Indonesia. They got more than 18,000. So keep guessing. We'll get through this in a little bit. Now, let's go to your comments and questions. I'm going to scroll down here, and we got a lot of them today. All right. Greetings from Richmond, Virginia. Travel is looking up. We will be in Munich next month. Okay. Jim and Harriet. Okay. Hi, Peter from Michelle. Patrick Cooney. Greetings from SoFi Stadium. Aren't you there a little early? Please. It's not till Sunday. And by the way, who are you betting on, guys? Is it the emotional bet, the Bengals, or the team bet, the Rams? Figure it out. Time's up. Okay. Judith saying greetings from Japan. Sue's up in Washington State. Greetings from Atchison, Kansas. All right. Hello, Willie. Evelyn saying hi. Lindy saying hi from Ventura. Hey, Willie's back on from Kenya. Okay. Jack is saying hello from Indiana. Okay. And Patty's in Kentucky. Sherry's saying we are going to Ireland and wondering what Allianz insurance to buy re-COVID, basic economy or premium plan. Listen to me. Are you going online? Is that where you found out about this? Please, I have nothing against Allianz. As I said last week, they've changed their policy to cover COVID. But nothing tells me that this is going to be shown to you in a way that you can decipher it and make sense of it online. Remember, if you're booking online, you can't complete the transaction unless you opt in or out of the insurance, and you don't know what you're covered for. And as I say, you don't know what you're not covered for. Go through a travel agent. You can buy third-party insurance from a third-party vendor, have them work it out for you, and then you'll know whether it's basic economy or premium plan that you want, but making sure that you're covered if you test positive for COVID. And that what that coverage means is that they'll pay for your quarantine, they'll pay your expenses, they'll pay for your food, and they'll get you home, right? That's what you need, right? Okay. Here's from Tanya. I use my Amex Platinum card for a Crystal cruise. Here's exactly what I was just talking about. I contacted Amex to request a chargeback and received a refund in 24 hours. By the way, one of the reasons why you received a refund in 24 hours from American Express is something called the holdback. And most people don't know what a holdback is. It doesn't directly affect you, it affects the vendor. If a credit card company, whether it's American Express or Visa, MasterCard, Discover, whoever it is, thinks that one of their vendors, in this case Crystal, is either not properly financed or is in a precarious financial situation on a product that they're selling that's in advance, right? They're not selling it to you today. You're not buying a cruise today and getting on a cruise today. You're buying it 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months in advance. They will accept your card and you will get confirmation from the cruise line that you have a reservation on the cruise line, but the money does not go to that cruise line until you walk the gangway and get on that ship. It's a form of escrow. It's called a holdback. And by the way, I've said it, I talked about this last week. This is the proof of it. American was doing holdbacks on Crystal. That's why you got your money back, because that money never went to Crystal. It stayed with American Express until you went on that cruise. Okay? So now the lesson learned here, and by the way, doesn't mean anything unless the lesson is applied, is that when you make a reservation now on a big ticket item like a cruise or a big resort stay or an extended family going on the same trip, negotiate an escrow. Make sure there's a third party that puts that money in a blind account that cannot be touched until you show up. And any vendor that's asking you to pay in full 6 months in advance, I would question. I mean, 20% down, okay, tolerable limits. But 100% in advance, 6 months in advance, Make sure it's an escrow. Now, certain states like California actually have a tour operator escrow law where they're required to do it if they're operating in the state of California or if they're based in California. But not everybody does it. I think the lessons that we've learned over the last couple of years, either through the pandemic or now through a failure like Crystal, should have us all embracing the concept of escrow. You cannot buy a house without putting money where? In escrow. And the seller doesn't get that money until the deal closes and you move in. That's why they call it a closing day. Closing day for cruises is you're on the ship. Anytime before that, you're rolling the dice. And I'm not saying that other cruise lines are in a precarious financial situation. I'm saying anybody could be. So why not protect yourself? Insist on it. And if somebody tells you, whether they're a tour operator, a resort, a cruise line, that especially when you're making reservations so far in advance that they will not do an escrow deal, think twice. All right. Melanie, hello from Miami. Gerald is saying hi from Tanzania. You give me the opportunity every week, Gerald, to let everybody know. April 18th, check your local listings. That's when the Royal Tour of Tanzania, our latest global special on PBS airs. So check local listings on that. That's with the president of Tanzania. Okay, hello from Lansing, Michigan. Headed to Madison in May on way to Yellowstone and Grand Tetons. Well, Madison's a great place to start. That's where I started my career, right? I'm a Badger. I went to the University of Wisconsin, and I'm sitting here talking to you tonight because of my experiences in Madison. That should tell you everything enough to scare you, but actually, I owe them everything. Okay, hello from, okay, sorry from Indiana? Okay. Mike saying Crystal is sunk. Yes, Mike, sadly it is. They literally closed their doors. Elizabeth says, greetings from Brooklyn, a great place to visit. I agree. Although every time I go to Brooklyn, I get lost. And I'm from Manhattan. I have to learn how to get around Brooklyn. Will you be appearing both days of the New York Travel Show, March 18th and 19th? Yes, I will. I'll also, by the way, be in Chicago on February 19th and 20th at the Chicago Travel Show. And a week later at the Washington, D.C. Travel Show on February 26th and 27th. So hope to see you guys there. Okay. Robert says, going down to Rio, February 24th. Any advice? Social distancing on Ipanema. How about that? Okay. Mike says, do you think Crystal's vessels will stay together or be split up? Absolutely split up. They're going to be picked off one by one. Nobody wants to take them all because the two bigger ships, I think the Serenity and the Symphony, are at least 23 years old. They're in good shape, but they're known in the industry as old tonnage. The one that everybody wants, but Crystal spent too much for it when they built it in their own shipyard, I might add, is the Crystal Endeavor. But I guarantee you, the sales brokers are working overtime now, and there's a feeding frenzy to see who's going to get the Crystal Endeavor. You have Royal Caribbean after it. You have Silver Sea after it. You have, I believe, Carnival might be after it as well, because it's a beautiful ship, and it's a purpose-built expedition ship in luxury, right? Ice class, and only 6 months old. So watch the space. But having all three ships of their ocean sailing ships sold together, highly doubtful. Hello from Chicago from Geraldine. Hello from Williamsburg, Virginia. April says, how can we get the Unruly Passengers fined? What kind of actions can we take to support the airlines? Well, look, they are being fined. But here's the problem, April. The people who are fining them can only propose a fine and then refer them to the U.S. Department of Justice. So anytime you hear, by the way, this is not just about Unruly Passengers, it's about airline safety in general. Anytime you hear that the FAA has proposed a $3 million fine against Airline X for faulty wiring, well, we followed that story, and we followed many stories like it. Was that $3 million fine ever assessed, or worse, was it ever paid? And in about 90% of the cases, it never was assessed at $3 million. It was mitigated down, or in many cases forgotten about. So talk about a deterrent or lack of one. How can you propose a fine that everybody sort of like winks and nods that's never going to be paid in full? It becomes the cost of doing business, and the behavior for which they were fined is sort of tolerated. This is totally unacceptable. So the answer to your question is, how can we get the unruly passengers fined? From an agency that can actually find them. And it has to be an agency that can find them of a substance or an amount of consequence. Otherwise, it's meaningless. Okay? Okay. Uh, Here we go. Colleen likes the idea of the cutoff time for passengers. The breathalyzer at the gate was a joke, I hope. I hope so too. But you know what? You can't ask flight attendants to be sky cops at 35,000 feet with somebody who's totally drunk. It's not only unfair, it's unsafe. So let's see what we can do. Short of the breathalyzer, look, if you have passengers coming on the plane already drunk, there's a reasonably strong chance they got drunk at the airport. Figure it out. Connect the dots. We can fix this. And for those airport retailers who don't want to lose revenue, think about this. There's about every state in America has a law that if you knowingly serve somebody drinks who's drunk and they go out and do something, you're liable as well. Where's the prosecution there? That ought to clean this up. We'll stay on top of that. Ellen says, if the U.S. doesn't extend the mask mandate, can individual airlines make this a rule? Yes, they can. And then they'll get sued. And then we're back in court. But the answer is yes, they can. Okay. Oh, Mike says, I flew Southwest last week, 737 MAX, and the cabin altitude was 8,900 feet. Much higher than most airlines. I don't understand that. Tell me more. I think you have a couple of typos in your email, Mike. Redo that and I'll read it again. Here's advice for Rio. Don't take any valuable items to the beach, period. You know what? Alexander's right. They still have the bike thieves in Rio. It's especially the case for women who may have a pocketbook or something with a strap, and they'll run right by you and rip it off your arm, and they bike away. So less is more in Rio. Okay. Okay. Route 66 is weighing in. Terry Frank, nice to talk to you. Hello from Darwin in Australia. Yes, it's opening. That's right, Colleen. It's opening. Hoping to head to the U.S. mid-year and wonder if the U.S. will stop the 24-hour test before departure. It's hard to arrange. I guarantee you that if once Australia opens, which is February 21st, you'll get that 24-hour test set up all over town because necessity is the mother of invention. Don't worry. Okay. Hello, Joan Lurie, real estate queen from Los Angeles. Nice to hear from you. Joseph Wangi, hello from Nairobi. Right back to you, Jumbo. Okay. Staying at the Hilton Copacabana for a long weekend, and that's it. And how much will you be drinking? All right. Okay. Mike says Viking Cruises heavily solicits their ratings and they win all the rankings awards. You know what? It's okay to solicit ratings if it's done in the following way. If you like us, let people know. What's wrong with that? Not if you like us, we're going to upgrade your cabin, or if you like us, you get a free dinner or a shore excursion, or if you like us, you get 30% off on your next cruise. That's the problem we're dealing with other travel providers. Okay. Okay, let's see. I'm looking here. Okay. The California Historic Route 66 Association is celebrating the newest national byway. And guess where they're doing it on Saturday? Needles, California. Now, if you've ever been to Las Vegas by car from Los Angeles, you've seen Needles. And I bet you haven't stopped there, maybe to get gas. Go back, it's fun. Okay, Colleen, if Jack Nicholson was in the room and you talked him to having a drink with you, would have given the hotel a top review? Probably not. The Shining Part 2, okay. Okay. Geraldine says, so how do you find out if a place or destination is even worth going to? Well, here's what it is. Think about how TripAdvisor started. TripAdvisor started as a community, a sort of an affinity community of people who love to travel, sharing their information with other travelers. TripAdvisor has turned into a full-fledged booking engine that edits its reviews, especially the negative ones, to be able to sell more travel. Now, they're going to argue with me on this. And when they do, we'll talk about the rape cases that we reported on CBS News a couple of years ago. I'm sorry, you're either selling travel or you're sharing bona fide information. Which one is it? Because the lines there get skewed very quickly if you haven't figured out the answer to that question. Okay. Terry says, I won't pick the aisle seat anymore. Well, why would you pick the aisle seat? Someone's always crawling over you. Your arm that's broken off by the beverage cart, right? It's the window seat, right? Get the window seat, get a pair of Darth Vader headphones, lean into the window, don't talk to anybody, enjoy your flight. Okay, here we go. Oh, we got some answers coming in, or some suggested answers. All right, what country is estimated to have the most islands in the world? Somebody's suggesting Norway. You're wrong. Anybody else? Okay, Norway is incorrect. I'll wait a little more and we'll come back to it. Okay. All right. Hello, Arthur. Thank you for that nice comment. All right. You know what? We're getting some now. I'm gonna scroll down here. All right. Now we're getting the answer, and most of you now are getting it. Not far from Norway. The answer is Sweden. In fact, listen to this number. The Stockholm archipelago alone, outside of Stockholm, and I've sailed it, is more than 24,000 islands. But wait, we're just getting started. The actual number of islands in Sweden, most of them uninhabited, I might add. I have to look down this to get the right number. 221,800. Yikes. Wow, okay. Now you know. All right. Patty says, Allianz has the complete plan online. You just have to read it all, and there is COVID coverage at the end of the policy. Patty, I hear you, but nobody ever reads everything online. You got to get the page, that was the problem during the pandemic. Nobody got to the part of the coverage where it said, we don't cover for pandemic, and they bought the insurance anyway. I really strongly encourage people to call a travel agent or a travel advisor, buy the insurance from them, have them talk you through the coverage. Because it's not just the basics of what they're going to cover, it's the exclusions. There are age exclusions in some cases, previous medical history exclusions, and destination exclusions. You got to know what you're getting before you get it, or you are an idiot. Okay? Even if you're a well-intentioned idiot, still an idiot. So you heard what I told you. Geraldine says, is the holdback from credit cards on cruises only or on services with future dates? No, it applies to any vendor. It can even be an appliance store. It's the determination by the credit card company, whichever one it is, that particular vendor is on shaky financial ground and they do the holdback. And I believe, and I don't know what my legal standing is on this, but I believe you as a consumer have a right to know from that credit card company which companies are on their holdback list. Wouldn't that determine which ones you'd book? Now, I know just by knowing that might accelerate their demise. But let's get selfish here. It's your money. You need to know. Okay. All right. Here's one from Martha. The fastest way and cheapest way to go from Lucerne to Lake Como. Well, buy your Eurail pass and end up in Milan and then drive from there. Okay. Hello from Dallas, from Catherine. I'm booked for a trip to Borneo in August. Do I think it'll be possible? I do. Okay. Lorena says, have I been to the Botanical Gardens in Madison, Wisconsin? Yes. And by the way, early morning bike rides through the Arboretum in Madison are well worth it. And you can rent bike. Madison is a bike city. Even in the winter, people are biking. Check out the Arboretum. Okay. Do Airbnbs, Christine wants to know, do Airbnbs in Canada require a copy of their passport to stay? In Canada right now, they require a copy of your passport to breathe. So bring it along. Okay, Katrina says hello from Alabama. Don Remen-Husta says, thanks for the program. We met at the Canary Islands. Hey, Don, I was just, as you know, we were just in the Canary Islands. Love it. Okay. Hello from Gainesville, Georgia, says Catalina. Will Australia and New Zealand be open by January next year? Australia is going to be open by February of this year, February 21st. New Zealand, probably a month or two later. Okay. Someone's asking, what about having the TSA handling intoxicated passengers? Really? You want the TSA to do that? So you do want a breathalyzer next to the metal scanning detectors, right? One-stop shopping, right? Is that a flask in your pocket? Got it. Uh, okay. Uh, I see what you. Oh, you talk about pressurization, Mike. I get you. It depends on the aircraft type. It depends on the aircraft type. In fact, the 787 is pressurized 6,000 feet less than other aircraft types. And when you get off a long haul flight on a 787, you feel the difference. Less of a chance of severe jet lag. Um, okay. Let's see. Higher. Oh, I see. Mike says higher cabin altitude, worse effect with alcohol. You know what? I don't really think Southwest took that into account with alcohol service. I think what Southwest took into account is our flights aren't that long, and we can always cut people off from extra service of alcohol. Still, the concept right now is scaring their flight attendants, and I understand why. Ellen says, any suggestions for a full day in Amman? I do. Uh, I love Amman. By the way, the best Chinese food I ever had was in Amman, Jordan, right? The best Italian food I ever had was in Lucerne. Get the concept? Go to the Four Seasons in Amman, great Chinese restaurant. But you also want to go to Jerash, outside of Amman, great ruins. The Citadel in Amman, amazing. Go to a restaurant there called Blue Fig, very cool place. And of course, if you look at the distances, you can do day trips out of Amman, whether it's to Petra or north. And if you plan it right, and by the way, remember they've had a peace treaty with Israel for many years now. You bookend your trip. Spend your first part of the trip in Jordan, then go over the Allenby Bridge if you're going over the north, or down through Eilat and Aqaba in the south, and go to Israel and fly home from there. Then you get a twofer. Okay. Okay. Michelle says window seat is number one. Okay. Costa wants to know, have I ever talked to anybody at TripAdvisor? You bet I have. And they weren't happy with me, but they didn't dispute what I said, right? They said only a small percentage of our reviews are fake. And if you do the numbers of what they said was a small percentage, that means that 1.3 million reviews on TripAdvisor are fake. You want to live with that number? I don't. Okay. Mike, Mike, you're a little late on this, but I thank you for that. You said Greece. It isn't. It's Sweden, but we've dealt with that. Okay. All right, I'm going down here. Raymond Vixen, aloha, Peter, the Hawaiian in Bayshore, New York. Hello, Raymond. And say hi to Birgit. Michelle Piper, wow. Angela Miller, wow. Wow about what? Lindy says, are you Darth Vader on a plane? Me? No. I just will not put up with bad common sense or lack of it, right? Look, let me share with you a quote about being a good passenger, right? The definition of ignorance is not the absence of knowledge. It's the conscious refusal to accept it. And I don't have a lot of tolerance for people who have no excuse for understanding that knowledge, or at least embracing it. Eileen says, I finally got my passport after 5 months. Eileen's story proves the point there's no consistency with the U.S. passport agencies. We've had folks watching our show here who've gotten it in 3 weeks. Eileen had to wait 5 months. Well, at least you got it. Okay. Craig says, I had a lady coughing on a 3-hour flight, single layer mask, coughing and wiping her nose. When the snack came she wanted to eat, I complained to the flight attendant in front of the woman. She moved. Airlines must deny obviously sick people at the airport. Okay, Craig, define obviously sick. Tell me, what's your tolerance level based on that definition, right? Is this it? Does that mean I should be banned from the plane like this, right? I mean, honestly, I know what you're trying to say, but you come up with a standard that's going to be sustainable. You can't, right? If I have a fever, you're going to take my temperature before I board, and will that be enough to deny me? Right? Maybe I have a rash. Maybe I got a rash because I was excited about seeing you. No, I'm kidding. But you know what I'm saying. The point is, should that deny me permission to board? I hear you, but I don't know what the solution is on that one. Okay. Patty says, I did read the insurance policy all online. Well, good for you, Patty. but I also did call Allianz to confirm I was reading it correctly. Unfortunately, none of the travel agents in my area seemed interested in helping me book my trip to Paris, so I had to do it all myself. I'm a big fan of travel agents. I'm not a big fan of indifferent and arrogant travel agents. If you can't, especially in this market, you can't find a travel agent interested in booking your trip and establishing a relationship with you that will go beyond one trip to a lifetime of booking trips. Wow, get another travel agent. But that doesn't stop me from calling travel agents. Uh, okay. Hi from Richard in San Antonio. Online, I always see free Carnival cruise deals and other great deals out of Florida. How come these deals don't apply to cruises out of Galveston near where I live? For the same reason that Disney discounts to people who live in Florida. So does Universal Studios. There's an in-resident deal. And I do believe there may even be one in California for folks at Disneyland out in the West Coast. That's the reason why you're not seeing it. All right. In May, this is from Adrian. We are flying British Air from Miami, London to Rome on business class. Booked it last year using reward points. The connection time in London is 1.5 hours. Ouch. Flight shows arriving and departing on Terminal 5. Well, that's good. Do you think this connection is doable taking luggage? No, I don't. British Airways has a terrible reputation of connecting bags, especially at Terminal 5. Go back and look at the history. You can Google this. But even if they had a great connection history, the minimum connecting time on most tickets through Heathrow is about 3 hours. And what they won't tell you is for your bags, it's 4. You're 2.5 hours short on this one. If you can get British Airways to put you on the later flight, land, go for a nice meal, have only one drink, and then take the later flight. Hello from Portland, from Meridell. Okay, Joyce says, is it true that purchasing airline tickets on Tuesday and Wednesdays gets you a better flight fare? If not, which day or times? Okay, that used to be the case. It used to be 1 minute after midnight on Tuesday night or 12:01 a.m. Wednesday morning, when all the discount fares that weren't purchased came flooding back into the airline's computer system, not yours, and you can pick up the phone and call them and get a great deal at about 2 o'clock in the morning. That's no longer the case. The days have shifted. For reasons that are still hard to explain, the best day to get a deal is Sunday night after 5 p.m. Now, that may change again, but right now, that's been our experience. And Colleen says there is a discount at Disneyland for Southern California residents. Okay, you've proved my point. There we go. All right. Many other travel agents I know are reporting tremendous difficulties dealing with tour operators and airlines. Maybe that's why they don't want to handle the trip to Paris. Not worth the waste of time. Well, I don't know the particulars of her trip, but I still can't understand why you wouldn't see beyond that and make a deal with a client to help them out. That's what travel agents are supposed to do. All right. Now let's go to some of your. We got to go to the photo of the week. I love this one. Take a look at it. All right, where is it? Everyone want to guess? Anybody want to guess? Most of you won't get it. It was taken by Lillian Berger, and she writes, sometimes you don't need to go further than your own backyard to find beautiful scenery. The gardens in this Shofuso Japanese house are an example of serenity and beauty. Where is this 17th century style home? It's in Philadelphia, in Fairmount Park. And the best time she says to visit is in April, when hundreds of colorful tulips line the way to the house and the garden. Right in your own backyard as we rediscover our own country. Congratulations, Ms. Berger. And thanks for setting that photo. And if you've got a photo that you think is great and warrants the photo of the week, you know what to do. peter@petergreenberg.com, and we'll post it right here. Let's go to some of your questions you sent in earlier. Kathy says, hi, Peter. We're planning a big bucket list trip of an African safari. We live locally in New York and Westchester. Any recommendation of your favorite safari tour guides? When you talk about operators, I've got a couple. On the high end, of course, you've got Abercrombie and Kent. You've also got, who else? You've got Mikado. I think Dennis Pinto does a great job at Mikado, and I highly recommend him as well. What Dennis does, which I think is so laudable, is that for every safari he books, and he puts his money where his mouth is, he puts one African child all the way through school. It's not like buying a couple of pencils and visiting an orphanage. He actually does this. And for that, he should be applauded. And by the way, I applaud him. Debbie says, can't each airline do its own no-fly list? Oh, they're already doing that, Debbie. Delta Airlines already has 1,900 people on its no-fly list. So that means they're not flying Delta. But that also means they can go next door to United, American, Spirit, Frontier, anywhere else, and book a ticket and go. So what's the point? Okay, Haley says, when will Hawaii drop COVID restrictions? It's starting to happen. It's starting to happen. Get ready. Within the next 2 weeks, you'll see new rules in Hawaii that'll apply to all the islands. They're actually talking to each other now, and we'll report on that when it happens. Melissa says, do I have a favorite private island? You know what? I do, but it's not private. It's just small, right? I love the Lau Archipelago in Fiji. Look at the map, and there's Matiki and Lakemba, unbelievable small islands with the most amazing people and the most amazing acapella harmonies you'll ever hear. They're not private. Anybody can go. Okay, when will the U.S. drop its COVID reentry test requirements? It'll probably happen in the midsummer. We're waiting for vaccination levels and booster levels to get up there. Remember, and I said this last week, I'll repeat it today. If you got your vaccination more than 270 days ago, most countries will not let you in. The 270-day or 9-month cutoff. So get your booster. Get your booster. Okay. Oleg says, I wonder if you've noticed airlines changing flight schedules and assigning flights that force you to change flights at a more expensive price. Is this a sneaky way to get more money from passengers? Well, wait a second. The airlines can't have it both ways. If the airline changes your flight and rebooks you on another flight with a stop, there should be no change in fare. None whatsoever. So I'd like to hear an example of that if they actually did that to you, because that violates their own contract of carriage. So please let me know. Send that into peter@petergreenberg.com. Okay? A couple of housekeeping notes. Listen on our radio show this Saturday, Eye on Travel, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We'll be updating all the stuff we talked about today, about Crystal Cruises, about masks, about the no-fly list, and about Frontier and Spirit and what that really means to your travels, especially when they overlap on so many routes and now can compete against American, United, and Delta on so many of the routes that they couldn't do together before. So that's between 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock Eastern time. If you can't find the show in your area, no problem. Just go right to our website, log on, and we stream it live, again, from about 10:05 in the morning to 1 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern time. Check your local listings. April 18th is when we premiere Tanzania, the Royal Tour with the President of Tanzania. And that'll start streaming out on PBS, again on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus the week of April 18th. I will see you next week from another distant remote location somewhere in the world, but it won't be in Saudi Arabia. It'll be a little bit east of here, way east of here. Okay, I cheated. It'll be west of here. But if you keep going east, you'll get there anyway. Does that confuse you? Fine, that's what I wanted to do. All right, guys, travel safe, be smart, and remember my quote on ignorance, and maybe, just maybe, you'll win the day. We'll see you next week.